The ModernJeeper Show, the show about Jeeps, Jeeping, and Jeepers.
Well, hey, Modern Jeepers, it's another episode of the ModernJeeper Show with me, Matson from MetalCloak. And yes, Mr. Modern Jeeper Corey Osborne. Hey, buddy.
Hey, buddy.
How are you?
I'm good.
Welcome back.
My throat's a little, but
well, you know, it's the Death Valley Dest. And of course, Rockstar Jeep Girl, Jessy.
Hi. It's
I
mostly
take it you had
allergies. The spring has started here.
Ooh, the spring has started there? Wow, because it's still wet and cold everywhere else.
We saw your lightning sitting in our campground the other night.
Yeah, like
over the mountain.
I'm pretty sure it was the same lightning. Yeah.
Wow. Well, you know, they promised big lightning and thunderstorms up in this area. My kids were disappointed. I'm like, where is it, Daddy? I'm like, you hear that one in the far distance? Yes, that's the one. Oh, Daddy, that's not good. That's not what you promised us. Made me out to be a liar. Mother Nature making me out to be a liar. I take it, Jesse, you had a nice long shower yesterday.
Yes.
Hair done, because you do not look like somebody who just got off the trail. You look like you're all back and put together and all looking good.
I don't know about awake. I'm pretty beat up, so
that's okay.
But yes, it was nice to finally have a shower. It's
nice.
Awesome.
Nice. Well, how was it? Tell me. Before we get into that, I have something that's on my chest. I need to talk. I just want to talk to our community, and I just want to get this out here real quick. But the whole thing that happened over the weekend with Silicon Valley Bank, and the only reason I want to bring this up is it's important to. I've noticed that in the conservative world, there seems to be this like, oh my God, the government is bailing out another bank like we had back in 2008, 2009, and I got to say, guys, that is not this case. All right.
Nope.
I don't know the details as far as how deep the government's going when it comes to SVB, but the general consensus is that if you're a shareholder in SVP or you're an executive in SVP, VP, or any of that, you're screwed. Sorry. SVB is a bank. Silicon Valley Bank is done. However, there was $170 billion in deposits in this bank. $170 billion. Most of that was VCs, companies, Silicon Valley companies, startups. We're not talking about these.
No.
We're not talking about Facebook money here, guys. We're talking about the little mom and pop startup, the guy who's working in his garage that was given maybe a $10 million runway to try to do it, and he's burning that up pretty quickly because he had to hire a bunch of employees because he's doing a bunch of research to try to find out if he can now have the next best solution for climate change or whatever else they seem to be working on. But these are all the startups. Every one of those startups has employees. When this got announced, most of those guys went, oh my God, I can't make payroll because all of a sudden my money is locked up. And that's the big thing, because all of a sudden there were some bad decisions made by the bank. But when the government comes in and freezes everything, all of a sudden you can't get your money out. You can't do anything with it, and your money's stuck. So now you can't pay your employees. Your employees can't pay their mortgage. Mortgages, it just goes on and on and on. So this could have been an extinction level event. An extinction level event. What does that mean? It means that something occurs that causes a rippling effect. And more businesses and more businesses and more businesses go out of business. I mean, just the rippling effect of this. So when the government did what they did, which was basically to backstop it and say, it's not a bailout, it's a backstop. We're not going to let this go farther, is what they did. They did exactly what they should be doing. They stopped it. They came in and said, every depositor, every penny of your money in there, you're going to be able to get back. So if you had $10 million of your company money in there, or $1 million of your company money in there, or $500,000 of your company money in there, you can get that out.
Well,
why is that important? Because $250,000 is all the government covers, right? The FDIC insurance of $250,000, which probably at one point in time was pretty good. It's only good for individuals. It's not good for the employers. It's not good for the companies. That's not enough for the companies. So at some point they're going to have to make some changes on it. Now, where that money should have been, instead of treasuries, and there's a whole nother reason as to why SVP failed when they were a fairly viable company. I mean, if you look at the bank and you look at the actual bank sheet, it's just where they chose to put their money. And the reaction to inflation. And everybody's pointing fingers at them like, oh yeah, oh yeah, how can you didn't know about inflation? How can you make these on? Well, they put money in 10-year treasuries. I mean, from a certain standpoint of like, you think that money's still there, except now it's worth less if you try to sell it early. If you sold it in 10 years, you get all your money back. If you sell it in 2 years, the interest rates go up, it's worth less. And so the paper's worth less. But if you're an employer or a company or somebody who put money into Silicon Valley Bank, you want that money out. There's companies that do payroll for a living. There's Silicon Valley companies that do payroll for a living, and they couldn't make the payroll for their clients because of SEB being closed. So I'm just glad. I just want to put that out there. I'm glad that it got covered. I'm glad the government's doing what it's doing. If they do it right, they'll actually come out with a profit for the American people and not just the taxpayer loss. That's my rant.
Huh.
Anything? Huh?
So I have a whole lot of thoughts, but we're not on the bankers show. And I think people need to understand how a bank works, number one. Mm-hmm. And I don't think the general population understands that. People think that they go put money in a bank and it sits in some little box with their name on it. And then when they come in, they go, hey, I want my money back. And that's just not how this works. And this is also not a bank that it's not where you and I store our money. It's not who we deal with as a bank. So you're exactly right. And it's what happens is it creates all this fear, and then it's a run on the banks. This is what causes banks to fail, is when everybody shows up the door and says, I want my money right now. Right. The money's there. They just don't have it in a cash bag they can just hand you back. So again, it's the media spinning things, because what else are they going to talk about? Literally, it's they got to create fear. They got to create this issue that really doesn't even exist. So there you go. Yeah, exactly. And unfortunately, in the way it works in Silicon Valley, this is how I heard it best described. Bob says, ooh, this is hot. And Frank says, oh, hey, Bob says this is hot. Boom. And then somebody else says, hey, Bob and Frank says this is hot. Boom. And then Bob, Frank, and George think it's hot, and so on and so on. So somebody had a suggestion that maybe when they came out and said, we're going to do a little bit of sales, we have to raise some money. I went, oh, maybe I should pull my money out. Oh, hey, he's pulling his money out. Oh, he's pulling, and it becomes a bank run. I heard it described that in the 20s, there were literally hundreds of banks that failed because of constant bank runs. 100 bank runs a year. I mean, just somebody will all of a sudden be a bank run. And the movie, That's a Wonderful Life, that's what it's all about, right? Trying to save a bank from people deciding, I want my money out now. You don't have your money out. In the case of It's a Wonderful Life, George, your money's tied up in Frank's house. And Frank, your money's tied up in Betsy's house. You know, I can't just get it all to you. Well, that was It's a Wonderful Life. And the same thing's here. All of a sudden, all this money, they went out. Well, they don't have it. It's just not liquid deposits. It's not liquid money. Now there is some failures. There absolutely are failures of that bank, but it's not the depositor's fault, because the depositors weren't going and saying, hey, put my money in high risk assets so I can try to get more money. What they said was, put my money is sitting in a money market. One of the safest investments you have. It should be liquid money market. And they're like, oh yeah, well, we put that money over here. Oh, so I can't have it back? No. Okay, fail. So anyway, I think it's good. And it's something we could talk about at some other point, because Corey does have a lot of history in this, and I'd love more on it. But that being said, it's just another example of you guys go away for Death Valley, and all of a sudden the world changes behind you. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's,
the weather, you know what? Changes.
It's all for the worst, too. So it seems like when things change, well, one thing that hasn't changed is the weather. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
It's not just in the West now. It's happening all across the United States. I saw this morning where the river that's flowing into California off the Pacific Ocean is now 5,000 miles long.
Wow.
And it's not going to stop. It's going to flow this kind of weather towards us for a long time. We're still in Vegas, so we got out of Death Valley yesterday and came down here to kind of regroup. We had one of our attendees, our videographer, had some carnage issues. So we wanted to make sure he was able to get what he needed to get back home all the way to Minnesota.
Is he getting taken care of?
Yeah. So his Gladiator, and we can talk a little bit about this. He actually, accidentally fell into a hole basically alongside one of the roads.
Flood damage.
Flood damage in the park, which is very, very common everywhere. When the tire fell in the hole, it was a deep hole. Like I'm sure he didn't say, but I'm sure it lifted the back of the Gladiator up when the driver's tire fell into the hole. So this is the short side on the Dana 44 front axle. And so that, that whole axle tube is about yay long. It's not very long, but it hit with enough force that it split the center section at the tube and kind of broke the tube out of the differential essentially.
Wow.
Yeah, not a whole lot of options, of course, especially inside Death Valley National Park. We were able to, I took a couple of ratchet straps through the sea to hold the tube back into the differential. And then we actually used some Factor 55 recovery gear, kind of put a synthetic loop, one of the recovery loops through the top of the sea, soft shackle, and then used his winch to basically get some tension on keeping the sea upright so the tire didn't fold over.
Yeah.
Wow.
It held.
It held. He drove that all the way back to the little ghost town of Ballarat, and then was able to use the folks. Shout out to the folks at Ballarat. Chuck and his wife are amazing people, and they just do a fantastic job, and they're really trying to bring Ballarat back up to what it was like in the past a little bit. They're doing a lot of fixing up to the place, and anyway, so they were able to get Wi-Fi. I sent Dell back with Alex, and then we took the rest of the group back up into Goler Wash, but called a tow truck. Tow truck broke down. So they actually drove Alex's Jeep back out to the highway and waited for the tow truck. And then the tow truck said, yeah, sorry, we can't come get you. And that was it. So they left his Jeep there, went back to Ballarat, called a different tow company, which had to come out of Ridgecrest, and got them, came out, picked them up, took the Jeep back to Ridgecrest, him and Dell, and kind of evaluated the situation. They actually ran into a guy that is an Ultra 4 guy, KOH guy, has a little garage in Ridgecrest. He knew Dell, and we thought maybe we could weld the tube back into the differential, but as if you're a welder, that nodular iron, that different cast, it's pretty hard to get a weld to stick to. And the more they looked at it, when they pulled that tube out, well, there's like a giant triangle, like literally probably 3 inches of a triangle that tore out of the backside of the differential.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah. And the bad part about it, of course, again, is, that's a 2020 Gladiator, and he was looking for, basically you're going to have a replacement housing. Mm-hmm. Pretty tough to find.
Sure.
Ended up, we kind of called around to some shops and thought maybe we could salvage one out of a junkyard. And his Jeep has an extended warranty on it. You really don't want to go throwing a bunch of misfit parts back in the thing just to get him somewhere else. Called his insurance company. They're like, oh, we'll take care of it. So they're going to actually tow it to Bakersfield probably today. Alex has a rental car now. They're towing it to Bakersfield, to a Jeep dealership in Bakersfield, and we'll have all the work done and the front end replaced by Jeep, just to keep warranty items intact. It'll have a warranty on this new front end, all of that kind of stuff. Insurance is taking care of it.
What's his insurance company? That's awesome.
American Family.
American Family. Wow.
Yeah, I have had American Family insurance in the past, and those are they've never let me down in years ago. So I gave him a rental car, and he's driving back to Minnesota. He's just on the other side of Las Vegas this morning, and so we'll be following him back as he makes his way home.
And then just going to ship his rig back to him, or what?
So once it's fixed, he'll fly out and then have to drive it back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, it adds to the drama of the video.
Absolutely.
I'm sure he was, while all this was going on, was he still filming?
A lot of it, he was bummed because he didn't get to spend a whole lot of time with the second group, and but the first trip was amazing.
That's what I heard.
The weather was it wasn't too terrible. We had a bunch of wind and that kind of thing, but
so I realized. So guys and gals, Corey's got one of those spots, and where he can, it automatically sends out messages or whatever and says, or hey, I'm doing fine and this is where I'm at. And now and that way we all know that he's still alive and everything's good. But I realized the real reason he has it is going, this is where I'm at. And you should change the phrase from "this is where I'm at, I'm just checking in to make sure I'm good" to "this is where I'm at, nah. Like, because every time I click on that and I say, "Where are you at now?" and I click on it and it goes in, and it goes in and scrolls in. I'm like, okay, he's at a hot springs, whatever. And
right.
It goes in like, okay, he's there, whatever. And it's just like he's just doing na, like where I'm at, you're not here. You should have been here. You're a loser.
I'll tell you a little bit about the spot. So we didn't have service, of course. We were able. So Dell has the same GMRS radio that I have and that Jesse has. It's Rugged Radio's base unit, the 45-watt big radio. We were able to communicate with him, and we were further than 20 miles apart over a mountain range. They were down in Ballarat, and we were actually up in Stripe Butte area, which is kind of this big valley up above Mingle Pass. And we could faintly hear him. He could hear us, but I thought we had heard on the radio that they were fixed and they were heading our way. So the spot enables us to, you can text somebody if you don't have cell service. Well, the problem is they have to have service to receive the text too. We got to our campsite the second night and waited until about 10, kept all of the radios on just in case they were going to get close to camp, because we thought maybe they were still going to show up. And we heard nothing. The next morning, I had sent Dell a text by the spot, and the next morning I get a "Who's this?" response from Dell, and so they were in Ridgecrest, but it was pretty cool. So I was able to text with him, and he could text me back. So I kind of knew what was going on while we were in the middle of the trip. But oddly enough, this little device kind of, how do I say it politically correct? Shit the bed.
After the fact, it was like,
it basically froze, and it's frozen in the past. So I did a couple of hard resets. Nothing.
Wow.
So,
how old is that one?
It's old. I mean, I've had this for
it's like original, right?
Yeah, no Bluetooth or anything like that. It doesn't connect to your cell phone like the new ones can. But I tried a whole bunch of stuff. I tried plugging it in and letting it like reset and all of that, and I got nothing. So once we got back into service, and actually last night I phoned Spot the company and said I've got some problems, and one of their techs got on the phone and is the power on? Yeah, the power's on. Well, let's try a hard reset. Yeah, okay. You go through all of those things that they're reading the script from, and plugged it into the computer, still nothing. And he said, "Oh, it sounds like your device is kind of locked up."
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
That's what I was needing to hear. So they escalated it, and it was kind of funny because when it was plugged into the computer, there was also, it came up and there was a firmware update. And I said, well, should I try to install the firmware? No, don't do that. It'll erase the device, and we won't know, we won't be able to troubleshoot it when one of the other techs calls you tomorrow because they're all out of the office. So we hung up, and I sat there for a minute, and of course I had to click on update the firmware. I did.
You did.
It's fine.
It's fine.
It came back. The screen came back up. Everything's fine. I reloaded everything on it, and yeah, it's fine. So
Yeah.
Maybe there was an issue with the last firmware or something. I don't know, but it seems to work again. But I tell you, you got to have a way. One of the guys on our second trip, he actually had a sat phone with him. So if things were going to get really bad, we always seem to have a couple of ways to communicate. But in this case, I mean, thank goodness Dell was there. I mean, he was able to get and spend. I'd be pretty freaked out if you break your axle in the middle and you don't know where you're at. So to have him be able to take Alex back to Ridgecrest and get him there safely was worked. It worked out really well.
Well, that's good. That's good. Alex is a good guy, and I'm glad it all got taken care of. Yeah, Dell called me sometime on Saturday or Saturday. Yeah, called me Saturday as I was running around, and I was getting ready for the Rubicon Trail Foundation's black tie and boots. And he called me, and it's like, and he's asking me questions like, I'm not there. I don't know how I'm going to make some decisions for you, man. I'm not there. Right. Just figure out, do what you need to do on site. Well, Corey said, I'm like, dude, you guys just figure it out. If you need to go and take care of him, ultimately, let's just take care of him and get it taken care of, and that's fine. And if it means you're not on the rest of the trip, that's okay too, man. That's fine. Just take care of it. So I just thought it was funny. He was calling me. I'm like, I can make a decision for you, but I'm not boots on the ground, man. I'm not boots on the ground. You figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, we were contemplating all. We could loop back around. I could take the CTI trailer that was in Beatty over to Ridgecrest, and then but I'm like, well, what are we gonna do with it? We still need a front housing, and now that the tube's out, I can't even really get it on the trailer. It really needs a flatbed, and it's like I told Alex, I'm like, well, what do you need to do? And he's like, well, I'd like to get home. I'm like, I would follow that advice. I would, if insurance is willing to step up, file a claim, let them take care of it. And it's just, sometimes it's just easier. We all want to fix it ourselves. We all want to, and he had options of, some people were reaching out, I think even Dave at Synergy reached out and said, well, we can get you a Curry housing, and $3,500 to $5,000 later, and then swapping parts out of it. And that's, again, he just needed to get home, and it worked out good. I mean, it really did.
Good. That's awesome. Well, I'm glad it worked out, and it's always cool, seeing what real network you have when you're posting stuff and how the world checks that up. I mean, and that's where I'm on the other side of it. Like, that's awesome. Like, but I wasn't on Facebook or anything watching anything, and all of a sudden, the reason I knew it happened is because I got a phone call from Dell. Like, oh, good. But I knew you guys take care of them. So
yeah.
It all worked out.
So how was this? I mean, I saw this morning your live feed. Tell us about the Rubicon Trail Foundation.
So it was their 13th year. Would have been their 14th year, but they had to had the COVID year, so they couldn't do it. But it's called Black Tie and Boots. And over the years, I've known about it, but this is kind of the sad part. It's like they would have been on their 14th year. We've been open for 14 years. So they basically did the first year in our first year of business here. We've never gone before. We've supported them every year. We always donate stuff for their silent auction, their live auction, all that kind of stuff. We support them. But for whatever reason, they moved it over here to the Marriott, which is right near us. So it's like stone's throw away. And I said, you know what? Let's go ahead and support them this year. But I also got asked to be the MC this year. So it's like, okay, cool. I can do that. That's not a problem. Get up there and talk a bunch of BS to a bunch of people about the greatest trail in the world. I can do that. Yeah. And so we bought a table, and we had some good people out there. Aaron was out there, Justin with his wife, Danny with his wife, Hunter and his wife, and my wife and I. There was like 300 people there. I mean, this is not like a small little bit, like 50, we thought 50, 70, 100, maybe 150, but there's 300 people at this event. There's such a feeling, like you've been to conferences before where everybody there is on the same page, right? And this wasn't just like, okay, we're all into off-roading, or we're all into just wheeling, or we're all into Jeeps, or we're all into, it's like, we're all there for the greatest trail in the world. We're all there because we're fans of the Rubicon Trail. Everybody in that room. So it was electrifying. It was incredible. I can't say specifically what the actual dollar amount raised was because I haven't really gotten permission to it. From what I've heard, it was double last year.
That's awesome.
And the money flowing from the live auction was just incredible because some of the stuff that was live auction, like a little 9mm that was going to be Cerakoted in the colors of the Rubicon Trail Foundation, that went for over $5,000.
Wow.
But what was cool about it is there was a bidding war going on between Jeff Arabia of Arabia's Overkill and another guy. And it was going back and forth and back and forth. The auctioneer he made a couple of conversations in the back and came back and said, Jeff, okay, because Jeff didn't win. Ultimately, the other guy won the Rubicon Trail Foundation. He goes, Jeff, if I can get one made in Arabia's Overkill colors, which is green and purple, would you want it? Goes, yeah. All right. So he sold 2. Right. So they got 2 done. And so he'll have his own unique one that's done in Arabia's Overkill colors. Right. Same thing happened with the MetalCloak sponsorship. I did a little package and it was kind of funny. My original donation was a ModernJeeper adventure. And then with all the changes and stuff we're doing right now, which we'll talk about at some other time in another episode, I said, well, we should do something a little bit different. So I did so let's throw something together. So I did one of our Rubicon Trail maps, the framed ones, right? The ones that are on canvas. I did one of those. I did a $500 gift certificate. I did a tour of the facility for 2 people and lunch with me for 2 people, right? And after I'm thinking about that, I'm going, that's not going to, like, there's things going for $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. And that's going to go for like $1,000. Like who that's like, it's is it really that important to go have lunch with Matson or to get a tour of the facility? I mean, it's just a joyride, right? So I went up there and I gave a little bit of color commentary about it for the auctioneer. And then I threw in there, you know what? We're going to do an adventure, MetalCloak adventure. I don't know where it's going to be, but I'll throw that in for tickets for 1 Jeep for 2 people can join us on this MetalCloak adventure. It's going to invitation only event. And that went for $4,100.
That's awesome.
And then I went up there and said, we'll do 2. So 2 people put in $4,100 to be a part of that and to do that. So
that's cool.
Yeah, it was cool. It was very cool. So it was a great evening, lots of fun, good people. Had a lot of fun being the MC out there. I hope they invite me back. I feel like like the Oscars, like nobody came up and slapped me.
Nobody slapped me.
Nobody slapped me.
Probably should have been slapped though.
I probably should have been. I should, and the thing is, I got everybody going because I hate it. I hate it when you go up and you start talking to people in a group and they go, hey, how's everybody doing tonight? You go, yay. Right. That's just, I hate that. Like, even if at skills day, it's like, all right, guys, how we doing today? Yay. I'm like, no. How are we doing? Like, oh yeah. All right. And then my mantra all evening was the greatest trail in the world. So we're all here today. We're doing this stuff and we're raising money. Remember, every dollar we're raising today is here to help the greatest trail in the world. And by the 3rd or 4th time, I got them trained. So every time I would say that, they would just go, rah! The whole crowd would go up, right? So it was fun. It was just keeping it going. And it was a good people, great stuff, and some beautiful artwork and a lot of original stuff from different artists there. A lot of great. There was a bidding war going on between a hand-painted Rubicon Trail sign. So there was bidding war going that. Then it would go for like a couple $1,000s, and then a Rubicon Trail Foundation fire pit that was custom made. That ended up going for like $1,750. Bidding wars going back and forth in the silent auction. It was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Nice.
And of course, good food. Of course, filet mignon and tiramisu cake and cheesecake and wine, which I didn't partake. Coffee, which I did partake lots of. So it was great. I'm looking forward to it next year.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's I don't know. This year, it seems that the majority of, I think, a lot of trails, a lot of events. We just got some additional rules sent for some of the events. Everybody now, I think, is seeing that the off-road industry can provide them some funding in order to protect what we've been doing for a number of years. And I think like RTF, which has been around for a long time, it's interesting to me that some of these events are now going, hey, the city is now recognizing that there's all this money coming into these larger events. And not only do they want to be protected insurance wise, things like that, but they're also then going, how can we guarantee us, let's rent these guys space to have their event. Even on like we talk about New Jersey a little bit, being on the beach. Now the city's kind of like, well, you're gonna have to show us a map of the space you need and we'll rent you space on the beach for your event. Whereas in the past it's been a little bit kind of like,
okay,
hey,
here's the space, here's the money.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that some of these municipalities, some of these trail areas, they need funding to stay afloat, and because more is being asked of them as well. It's insurance costs, it's all of these costs that we've just kind of, we just assume that of course the Rubicon Trail is going to be there. They can't close it. Well, they sure can.
And they did actually. They closed it in December. It's a big flap out here because they closed it in December.
Absolutely.
Everybody pretty much illegally closed it. And it was a huge flap, huge problem. But you can't. You're right. You never know. These events can go away. That's what we just dealt with TDS. We were out at Tierra del Sol, and Tierra del Sol is a shell of what it was before because of the local municipalities, the local groups, the BLM, everybody else deciding, hey, we're putting a lot of effort out here. Where's our piece of the pie?
Right. How come we're not making any money? You guys seem to all be happy. Where's ours? And we even had this conversation inside the national park where, Caltrans handles the highways and whatnot, but inside the national park, it's a little different because you're also dealing with a federal entity as well, and their funding is a little different. Death Valley is one of the few parks that is able to take some of those dollars. They're actually, I think, one of the only parks that their entrance fees can be directly applied to needs within the park as far as road repairs and things like that. Right now, they're using a lot of that funding to repair Scotty's Castle. But like these roads, they're not on a priority list when, I just saw where John Slayton, one of our sales guys, he just got power back after 13 days or something.
Yeah.
So all of these resources are being pulled in 100 different directions, and all of a sudden people go into the national park and they go, hey, wait a minute, this is dumb. I just paid my fee to get into the park, but you're telling me I can't go to these areas because the roads are closed. Who can I point my finger at? Right. And it's unfortunate, and things happen, weather happens and things have to get repaired, but the expectation is, but I paid my fee. So are my fees going to get reduced if I can't go to as many places? No.
Right. No, that never happens.
Right.
That never happens at all. Yeah. Well, it's the same way on a park. You go to Disneyland, pay your $200, but then one of the rides closed.
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah.
You're out of luck. The rides just happen to be closed. You're out of luck. Sorry. So it is interesting because there is so much, like the Rubicon Trail for it in of itself. The Rubicon Trail Foundation is responsible for keeping that trail open so that years and years and years from now, that decades from now, that our grandchildren's grandchildren can go to it, right? That's the goal. That will always be there. But it takes effort. It takes effort. It takes effort on the side of these parks. It takes effort on the side of Death Valley. When I went there last in the fall, it was pretty amazing how much repairs had already been done.
Yes.
From the flooding, right? And the fact that they are on it, the fact that nobody's just sitting back going, well, we'll get to that part. No, it's like they're on it. They're doing it. They're repairing it. They're working it, right? And
I think I can't remember if we talked about it in the last podcast or not, but there was a comment made to Jessy, and she was talking with a gentleman about he ran into our group, and he was in a Toyota pickup or something, and he said, well, Titus is, closed, but you guys are all capable. So you could still go do it.
Yeah.
And Jesse's like, well, no, it's closed.
And it's closed.
Yeah. It's a closed, the Park Service has closed it. Yeah. But you guys could just go around the signs and you can still go down that trail.
Yeah.
Jeez.
I had to have a little education session with this guy.
Yeah. And it's like, do you not understand? It's and people just
they don't care.
They don't have to. Those are rules for somebody else. Like,
so you're touching on something that is big a part of the major problem that we're dealing with in society and alone. Like the whole thing. And this is. I'm not going to get political at all, guys, but just go back to what was happening pre-COVID. When COVID occurred, the rules, everything's set up. There's this general mentality that rules are for suckers. That the law is just the law when you want it to be the law. But the fact that the fact that the law wasn't being enforced on certain people and certain avenues and certain things for so much that we're supposed to respect it. No, there's this general disrespect for the rule of law. That unfortunately is like the precursor to chaos, because if you have anarchy is disregard of all laws. And if all you have is a general disregard for the rules and the laws that make up what we consider to be community, society, I mean, they're there for a reason, guys. They're not there because somebody's being a dick and going to put it up there and says, but they are there, right? And we have to have a certain amount of respect for that. It's just insane to sit and go, well, the sign's right there. Yeah, who cares? Just go around it. It's all right. Mm-hmm. No, that just
and like it is everywhere too, and it's who's going to police it? We can create new rules, but we can't enforce them. So when you have very few enforcers, if you will, then people know that, well, it's kind of like speeding, right? Like, well, everybody's speeding, so I'm not going to get caught. I mean, everybody's doing it, but it's still not legal. It's not right, but right. I mean, I don't know. It's a weird. There's definitely a weird thing.
What's your average? I mean, obviously, you go across the country. When you're towing a truck, what's your average speed?
Well, I'm so different. Everybody knows that I'm the slow guy.
What's your average speed?
I mean, when I'm pulling, I'm typically between 65 and 70 if it's a 75 speed limit.
Right. But what's interesting is you said you're the slow guy, right? We got to remember back in the early 90s. It was 94, 96 when the law got changed. 55 miles an hour, guys.
Yeah.
We used to be max. 55, guys. If you're new, you've never driven before, and you're young generation, and you're out there going, well, I'm cruising at 70. Yeah, today we cruise at 70, 80 miles an hour like it's nothing.
Right.
55 was the speed limit across the country, guys, across the country, right?
Yep.
But most of us violated that. Most of us would be driving at 70 miles an hour and going, yeah, well, I just got very good at looking in my rearview mirror and make sure I didn't see the copper in the Camaro or the copper in the Mustang, whoever happened to be back there, right? But that's what the rules were. That violation occurred. But there's a certain point where, yes, there are stupid laws, but you have to suffer the consequences. I was willing to pay the fine if I did that. I wasn't going to be like, well, you can't give me that. I'm protesting it. No, if I got caught, I'd pay the fine. I made a conscious decision, but you knew consciously what it was. I think even these guys saying, well, if they went around there and then all of a sudden they got caught and got billed or fined, they probably would have, protested it. Like, whoa, you can't put a sign up like that. Well, yeah, yes, they can. Anyway, man. So Death Valley. Yeah. So tell us more about the trip itself. Like what unique places did you go?
We did some things differently this year for sure, and that's always been our goal is to make sure that we still haven't seen all the places in the park. So it's always important for us to be able to explore new places or do things a little bit differently. We ended up doing Echo Canyon backwards. So typically we'd be in Furnace Creek and come out through Echo. And this time we started over in Beatty and went into Echo backwards, which doing things backwards, sometimes it kind of sounds funny, like, oh, you've already done that trail. Well, you do it the other way, and the perspectives and the views and the things you see are completely different. Mm-hmm. And then, I mean, we stayed in Furnace Creek at a regular campground the very first night, which is rare. And then we kind of, these two trips, we did a lot more, I would call them touristy places. We typically don't visit some of the places that we see, all the Subarus and the little cars at and stuff like that. But this trip, in order to get to some of the places around the valley, we drove down through Badwater, which we'd never done before with a group. Artist Drive, which is another popular tourist little paved road through the park. And then we headed way south. We went way south, clear outside of the park into a little town called Shoshone, and the Ibex Wilderness, which is in the kind of the southeast corner, that would be, of the park. And again, we ran into a situation where we pull up at a gas station and all the pumps are out of service.
Oh no.
Yep.
And it was a planned fuel stop, so we ended up having to, it was only a 23 miles to the next fuel stop, which was in Pahrump. So we actually drove all the way to Pahrump. But one of our attendees actually lived in the Pahrump area and had a whole bunch of knowledge of local trails in the Pahrump area. So it was cool because he was telling us a little bit about their Jeep club in the Pahrump area and the trails they go on, and worked out pretty well. We got to go into a little convenience store, which everybody loves a good convenience store, especially in Death Valley.
Right.
And then we went all the way around the Ibex end and had an amazing sunset and cooked an amazing dinner, and everybody got to sit around a campfire, and it was fantastic. And then the third day, we actually went back up and over Goler Wash and into Ballarat. Turned everybody loose there. We headed back over to Lone Pine to pick up the second half, and it literally we had the one day where the weather was okay, and then it was a downpour. I mean, it was rain and it was snow and
wow.
So when we actually left Lone Pine on the second trip, it was pouring down rain.
I was like, we need to get out of here before the flood.
Yeah,
because it didn't stop raining all day.
Yeah, and
all night.
We drove. Cerro Gordo was actually closed because the roads were still had snow on them. Ended up going through Darwin Wash into the little town of Darwin. Came out to Panamint Springs and everybody fueled up. Got a milkshake.
Raining.
Headed down to our favorite place of Minnietta. The Minnietta mine though had some
neat occupants at the time.
Some folks in it, if you will. I unfortunately, and we had this conversation while we were out there, the parks are there. There's obviously a lot of people in the parks. And this time of year, you don't see that many. And I was surprised. The campgrounds were full. Even though it was cold and windy, the campgrounds were pretty much full. Because people don't have to work anymore. And if they do work, they can work from anywhere. So a lot of Starlink antennas, people sitting in their tents.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it is, it's the van life thing. It's a reality, and I get it. Like, they can literally work from anywhere now. So we ended up actually going further down. We didn't stop at the Minnietta. We went down into Ballarat, and that was the first night. We were still outside the park a little bit, just south of Ballarat, and that's where Alex's axle. Huh. Two X's. That's weird. Alex's axle broke. Yeah. And that was kind of a bummer. But then, so we were down to a pretty small group, kind of took them on a little trail that I've seen on maps that I'd never been on. It was a little torn up.
Jesse's sitting there shaking her head behind you as you're talking.
Oh yeah.
It was a pretty
yeah.
Yeah, it was a steep climb, a lot of soft dirt and rock. And we had Christian was actually with us on the second trip and was pulling his trailer. Everybody got up the hill fine. I think it was first thing in the morning. It woke everybody up really, really quickly.
Yeah.
But the rest of the trip was amazing. We actually got all the way over Goler Wash and Mengle Pass and stayed at a little place called Warm Springs, which was Louise Grantham's property, a talc mine in the valley.
Met some people that we know.
Oh, so yeah.
Before you do that, like Warm Springs, so because that was one of the ones I got a spot the message on, right? And it looked to me like a couple of different houses and a swimming pool.
Yep.
Is that
Yep,
is that
so
swimming pool
Is
part of the
it
it's
springs?
still
Is
there.
that-
Yeah. There's actually a warm springs that comes out of the hill and
mountain.
back.
Yeah.
Louise Grantham, one of the more profitable women that were mining in Death Valley ever.
A profitable woman.
Well, and she did a really good job. She ran a really nice mine and had bunkhouses for her staff, and it was a talc mine. There was a couple of really large talc mines in that area, but we pulled up there, and here's a couple of Jeeps set up their tents already, and I'm like, well, here we're running into people everywhere. There were people at Barker's Ranch where Matson got captured. There were people at Geologist Cabin, which is another one of our little spots. And we walk around the swimming pool. I'm going to still give everybody a tour, even though there's another group camping. And guy comes around the corner and he goes, "Hey, I know you guys. I listen to your podcast." Like,
oh my gosh.
What? Yeah, and
what's the odds of that?
I'm ready for a confrontation, right? I'm ready. This guy's going to be like, "Hey man, like we're all camping here and we were here for like," and so a shout out to Mojave Mike is what he goes by.
Wow.
And yeah, pretty cool. Got to chat with him for a little bit, and the wind was blowing really hard, and we ended up all tucking up kind of into the other side of some of these bunkhouses and some trees, and had a great night actually. No fire. The wind was blowing too hard, and actually the fires aren't permitted inside the national park unless you're in a National Park Service fire ring area. But yeah, so then day 3, we got back out on the highway. We went and took the second group to Badwater. Actually walked all the way out into the Alkali Flats in Badwater, 282 feet below sea level.
Wow.
And then went up, took them to Mesquite Dunes on the other side of Stovepipe Wells, and we actually stayed in the Stovepipe Wells campground, which was fabulous.
And it was 80 degrees.
80 degrees. Yeah.
Wow.
It was awesome.
Yeah, it felt really, everybody was kind of ready for some heat. Yeah. And again, it's kind of funny when we're out there and we're at a campground to me, because then you're around, 100 other RVs and campers, but you know what? They do a good job of keeping everything clean. There's regular bathrooms. There's the convenience store. There's fuel, all of those little creature comforts, if you will. So it was good. It was a really good trip. Next morning, I took everybody out to the Keen Wonder Mine, and we did a little hiking out there. And yeah, everybody headed for home. One of our folks was headed back to Mississippi. We had some folks from California. Of course, Alex going back to Minnesota. Yeah, it was a good time.
Awesome,
for sure.
Awesome. I have to know, Jesse. So how was it taking Funshine out?
It was good. She's got some little love marks, but she did excellent. Of course, I had no problems other than falling to my death off the side of the hill. That didn't happen, but
that sounds like a Matson moment. What?
Not when the other guys are telling me you almost came off the side of that hill.
Wow.
I was spotting her there. She was never in any, like, I'm going to direct her to drive off the side of the cliff.
But
so versus like an actual Matson moment where Corey's going, stop as my Jeep's
like,
about to go off
come
the side.
on.
I'm like,
come on.
Okay.
And I'm like,
She did have an interesting issue in the JL where manually shifting, she's in 4 low, she's in 2, the vehicle stopped, and I said, "Come on," she's to the floor, and nothing was happening.
And I switched it back down to 1, and it's still like to the floor.
It wouldn't, like, there was no response at all. And I'm like, "Give it some gas," and she's like, "It's to the floor," and it's just sitting there. So I had her back up a little bit and kind of it rolled through it, and then once it came up, it was fine. That's that 2-liter turbo, but it's never done that before.
That's weird.
Yeah,
for that.
It was kind of odd.
And then the axle lock was giving me fits for some reason, even in too high. It was weird.
So the axle lock on the front, that little clip that goes into the differential for the electric locker.
Yeah.
It was kept flashing on the dash, and it won't stop. It'll just sit there and go.
It's like a seatbelt. You don't have your seatbelt.
Yeah. And if it comes unclipped or something, it won't work. Like it just goes into shutdown.
She actually reached underneath there, and she said it clicked, and so somehow it must have come separated a little bit or something, and then it didn't give us any more issues. So yeah. I mean, it was fabulous. I think we had a Toyota guy that was a passenger of one of our other attendees, and after being in the Jeeps and stuff, and I think he's like, I'm selling my Toyota and I'm going to buy a Jeep. It's so much smoother than my Toyota.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. That's cool. Well, it's that. How about the change? Because I know I've got to tell our listeners that when going out with Corey and Jessy, when they were in the Gladiator, it was like 15 minutes to set up, 15 minutes to tear down. Like they had a routine. You watch them and it's like this organized synchronicity going on between the two of them, where they're just like doom, like they know whose job it is to do what, and they just get it done and get it set up and get it torn down. What was it like doing Funshine, a whole new routine? I mean, it was a little bit of, okay, what's in this drawer? Oh my God. I think we packed less.
I think we took less, and by the end we were better because we kind of were knowing where stuff was at, but it's still I think we all, and I think the consensus from both groups is, we all bring too much stuff. We really do. Yeah. Aaron was with us on the first trip, and I got to hand it to him and his daughter. I don't think he brings very much stuff.
No.
He still has a lot of room in the back of his Jeep, and I think we could take a lot less. It's hard. I noticed, well, maybe it's my excuse. I noticed when we're guiding, of course, I take a lot more stuff just because in case we have to help somebody else.
Right.
But maybe that's just my excuse to take more stuff.
Yeah, but you're a Boy Scout like me, though. I'm that guy too. Like, I know exactly what I need to pack.
You and somebody else. You got to fix it.
This is the exact food I need. This is the exact things I want. This is the exact stuff I need. Oh, by the way, I'm going to take double that just in case.
Yeah. Right.
Exactly.
I might as well throw that in there. And I might as well throw that in there. God, what would happen if this goes? You start thinking about all those what if scenarios, and you end up having more stuff than you need. Yeah. So you're digging through all of that to get to the stuff you actually need.
To get to the stuff you actually. I mean, and food is horrible because for me, we all know how you all of a sudden you blow through lunch. You're like, oh, I'm not even hungry. And then dinner comes around and you're like, yeah, let's just do something simple instead of cooking tonight. Well, now all of a sudden you're done.
You got extra food. Yep.
You got all this extra food in one day goes by and you're like, oh my gosh, and if the weather's bad, you don't want to really cook, but she did good. We had some good meals and our new little Scottle.
Great. It packs away smaller. It cools down quicker. It heats up quicker. It's so much better. I mean,
and that was a guy. That's his guy in his garage.
7X Off-Road.
7X Off-Road, who makes the little, and it's a great little design, and it's well done, and it's just easy. The big Scottle, we love it, especially if we're making food for a lot of people. But it's cast iron surface, so it's heavy.
Nothing packs easy.
Yeah, just big.
So the new Scottle, what's the surface for the new Scottle?
It's steel.
Mm-hmm.
It's steel. Okay, cool. That's good.
Like a wok.
It's like a wok, but it's a less dish. It has a drain off of one side.
Super thin, like a wok is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
And he created a lip on it, so it also on the back of it has a straight angle.
So you can put a burner. It's got two burners.
Made a little burner that hooks onto it, and you can do your cowboy coffee or boil water while you're cooking something else or whatever.
I put up a reel this morning. I haven't put it on Modern Jeeper yet. It's still on my personal Instagram, but it's a reel and it shows that little thing.
Cool. We'll check it out. We'll give you a link to those guys. That's awesome. I love it when good people make good products.
Yeah.
Right.
Like MetalCloak does every day.
That's right.
I have to say,
well, awesome.
Yeah, Funshine is like butter. I wish I could put everybody in that Jeep and let them drive it and see the difference that our suspension makes on every vehicle. You thought the ride was rough. This is like butter. It's crawling over rocks and it's just
You
light.
Don't even know.
It's easy. Yeah. It's simple. It works well. Yeah.
Yeah, it is one of those things you always kind of wonder, like, is there a way of having, like, okay, we're going to do a test drive. We're going to go to an event. We're going to have a test drive, just like BFG has this little trail.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Here we're going to, now here's this rig, right? This is a properly built rig. And then there's a MetalCloak rig. Like,
yep.
It's just, and because people don't know, I mean, you really don't know the difference unless you've driven
right.
it. You just don't. And it's, you see it all over the internet. Like, oh, well, joints don't make a difference. Like, it doesn't matter that a Johnny joint is hard rod. It doesn't make a difference. Like, that's not what makes a difference on a vehicle suspension. And you can't tell in the ride quality. Dude, you don't know until you try it.
That's right. That's right. Hey, talk about the this whole recall thing that we just got notice of.
So let me understand this correctly. And you and I were kind of joking about this before, but this is on like manual transmissions, right?
Right.
So I swear to God, there is an executive in Jeep going, wait, how many do we have to recall? Okay, wait.
Yeah.
Did we seriously build that many manual transmissions? Like, who the hell bought these things? Because I don't know. Anybody who's got a manual transmission?
It was weird because it was starting out was just Gladiators that were having, I kind of think, I don't know why it reminds me of Angry Birds, but the title is, of course, Exploding Clutches.
Right. I love that. Exploding Clutches.
Exploding Clutches.
Diamond.
Yeah. So now they've said they're recalling 70,000 Wranglers and Gladiators manual transmissions.
Did they
for
really
exploding
sell
clutches.
that many?
70,000 apparently.
What?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's all to, like, the Far East or something. Like, where do those actually? Who buys manual trans? I mean, is this like the most basic one? Now, I remember, like, Cal 4-wheel used to always do the cheap man, like they would get manual transmission. Like they could only afford, they would get the most basic model of a rig. It'd be manual transmission, no amenities. That was with the JK. Like the JL, they started out like you just can't really find those. It's like a special order thing, right?
Right.
I don't like go down to your local dealership right now, and unless they're a dealership that has a whole slew of rigs, I don't think you're going to find a manual transmission amongst their fleet because people just aren't buying that stuff. And so in fact, I will like to say Cal Forward this last year, they raised $130,000 for their Gladiator that was built by our friend Ben Veroza. Yep. It was mainly a Gen Wright Ben Veroza build, but it was that Gladiator raised $130,000, $70,000 profit for the Cal 4-wheel, which is awesome. The next rig, guys, this is a tangent, but the next rig now is being built by our buddy Dirt Every Day. And Fred Williams is building it with Warn. So it's going to be Warn, Factor 55, Fab 4s, Fab Tech. I mean, it's that whole family of companies. So they're building the entire rig. So MetalCloak's not going to be on it. I'm trying to like get it, but it's another Gladiator. I think a red Gladiator, and they're building it up completely. And that won't be for 23. MetalCloak will be back in charge for 2024. And we have something very, very, very special up our sleeve. So the anticipation starts now. But anyway, so yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I just, the amount of so what I read was that the recall, of course, is probably going to negate the class action lawsuit that was filed because of this exploding clutch or clutch issues. But that's the only reason for the recall then? Right. Hey, I know how to get rid of this class action. We'll just bring them all back.
We just bring them all back. Yeah. No, I'll tell you what, it's again, I'm still trying to figure out, like, yes, I actually enjoy, like, okay, so our JK, our 2009 JK was a stick shift. My YJ or TJ, all that stick shift, right? We have an LJ here now that was automatic, and but I actually enjoy the control you get out of a stick shift.
Yep.
But the what do they even call it anymore? Like when you go manual, when you put it in manual mode, what's that technically called?
We just call it
manual mode.
Manual mode. Slap your shifter.
I got to tell you, it was Jeremy Rowan, our buddy at Outlaw Jeep Adventures, when I went wheeling in with him on one of his rigs, that kind of taught me the value of that, right? Like I never really used it. That's there. Maybe, you're out there driving, you want a little control your power, like you might a little speed, but actually wheeling with that, you don't really need a stick shift. You just don't need it. And these days, especially with the way the transmission works, you just don't need it. So I'm still surprised there were 70,000.
Well, we last year on the CTI Tour, we were seeing, I think it's kind of maybe it's a back east thing.
Yeah.
We saw a lot of stick shifts back east, and I don't know what it was, because everybody then has, they struggle with getting up on the trailer and not, trying to dump the clutch and get up on the ramps. And it's always kind of an entertainment value for us. But you can get them up on the trailer, and then man, what's that smell? Well, that's your clutch
exploding
disc.
clutch.
That's your exploding clutch. It's gonna,
because they can't drive it.
Right. Yeah, that's that fun smell. I love the smell of exploding clutches in the morning. Man. All right. Yeah. Well, this has been another great episode. Well, we're right at the 1 hour mark. That's perfect. Any more to talk about?
We're gonna.
What was your favorite gadget, you guys? Do you guys take any cool gadgets this time?
I got a new light.
Oh, yes.
Jesse bought me a light, and it was somebody that we had met at the Keystone Show, a company that's in North Carolina, and it's
STRK.
I
want to say Striker is what I always think it is. STRK, I believe.
And we'll have to get it out and bring it up on a later episode. But it was really cool. It's instead of the big alien disc that, I have, like, it's got a solar panel on top and a bunch of lights, and it's great for a group.
Yeah.
And it doesn't pack.
But it's big. It's kind of round, and the tripod's kind of clunky. This is super simple. It's on a little tripod, but it's very small. And the light literally is about that big around, and it'll light up 20-foot radius.
And it packs in a little pack that big.
Goes in a little bitty package.
Little
bitty.
We'll have to bring it up in a future episode.
That's awesome.
It has multi-function. It's pretty cool.
Multi-functions?
Multi-functions.
Does it strobe for a dance party?
It does. And it's also got a red light to it as well.
Yeah. It's
boots and hats and boots and hats, boots and hats.
Awesome. Well, hey guys, ModernJeepers, thanks for joining us. This has been another great episode. By the way, check out, if you haven't checked it out, check out the episode number 208. Fun interview with Tomb Raider Wrangler.
I found it. STKR Concepts.
STKR Striker Concepts.
Yes.
Striker STKR type concepts. So great. See, I just keep adding to my little wish list. If I keep doing this all year, then I'll have a Christmas list for Louisa.
Yeah, there you go.
So it's not all about just like, well, put on your Amazon list that you
like
want.
What?
I have to think of like what? Yeah, what? But yeah, great interview with Christy Knox last week.
Cool.
And then which was fun to do. We got more coming up. We got some other influencers. In fact, I want to get Alex on the show.
Yes, definitely.
Too, probably in the next couple of weeks, once he's all settled in and got his rig back, and we can get his perspective. And he's working on the video, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. He'll be piecing it all together over the next couple of weeks, and I'm sure he's overwhelmed the amount. I mean, he had a ton of content. So, and
he brought his friend Andreas, and Andreas is a cinematographer.
Wow.
Learning and helping Alex, and he was a great asset to the team.
Great addition.
We enjoyed them being out. They captured a lot of cool content. We talked over dinner last night with Alex and what direction we are wanting to go and to make this personable for everybody. So it's going to be exciting when it comes out.
That's great. Well, yeah, here's to doing more of that. Now, guys, by the way, okay. I said this last week's episode. I'm going to say it again, and I even said it this morning. There's something special happening in the Modern Jeeper Adventure world. You are not going to want to miss Modern Jeeper Adventures in Moab. Okay, Memorial Weekend. Most likely, I will be there. I say most likely because you never know when the switch switches and Matson can't make it because I was supposed to be in
It happens, yes.
But but that's the goal. So it really is important. And so if you have any inkling at all of joining us in Modern Jeeper Adventures in Moab, this is the one to do it on. Okay. And in fact, we have a limit, but we don't really have a limit in Moab. So we may be opening it up. Just make this a real special one and open it up more than we really put in there. So go on there, ModernJeeperAdventures.com, and register and just be a part of it, because it's going to be very special. We have a lot of ideas about this one. And but if you have any questions, to reach out to me, Matson at MetalCloak.com, Corey at MetalCloak.com, Jessy at MetalCloak.com, and otherwise, I know the CTI Tour, man. Like, what's your next? Is Easter Jeep Safari your next?
Easter Jeep Safari. Yep. Easter Jeep Safari will be the first one, and then it is going to be a whirlwind of a year. So we'll get a schedule up, and we'll be sharing that through all the social media channels, and we'll post it somewhere.
Be reaching out to quite a bit of folks, so stay tuned. And if you hear me calling, you better pick it up.
Yep, there's a lot going on, guys. A lot going on. We have one hell of a year scheduled. I think we're going to end up doing 4,000 CTIs this year. It's going to be insane.
Something.
And it's CTI is if you haven't done it yet, you got to go do it. So you got to pay attention, watch us, say hi to us, and if we happen to show up at you next to your camp, come over, give us a bear hug. It's okay.
There you go.
All right. Thanks again for joining us. It's been another amazing episode of the Modern Jeeper Show. And from all of us to all of you, we'll see you on the trails.
Cheers.
See ya.